So today I have a special guest. I actually learned about this guy around 5 years ago. I was in Austria doing a Euro trip, and I met a personal trainer at a gym, and he was like, "You got to take a look at this guy. He's doing handstand push-ups with one arm and then clapping behind his head, like just doing crazy stuff." So he showed me this video of this guy named Simonster. So today I have the honor of interviewing him, so we can all enjoy and learn a lot from his expertise and superhuman strength. So thanks for coming on today.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So I guess the first question I'd love to know is, in 2015 you posted that crazy video, and do you know which one I'm talking about? You were doing like
yeah.
Okay, you do know.
Yeah, another one.
Yeah. Was there a specific reason that you made this video, or?
Yeah. So for those who don't know, you can find it on my YouTube channel. It's just called Simonster Strength. That was just a fun little project I did with a friend, Dave, who I've breakdanced with for years. He likes doing videography. He was getting into videography a bit. Everyone was talking about this guy named Ido Portal and all the crazy stuff he does. And Dave and I said, yeah, we should make a video just showing some skills and some strength stuff and some breaking. And we did, and that was the product.
Gotcha.
Yeah, we didn't expect it to go as far as it did.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's hard to compare him and what you do, because it is slightly different. Because he's more into movement, but yeah, I don't think he could quite do like the stuff that you were doing in that video. I mean, I've never seen him do a full planche to begin with, and you were doing like this, full planche with like this. You were like walking, right?
Yeah.
Beginning.
So we're definitely very, very different in our disciplines, but we had a few friends who were quite into him. There was a lot of hype around him at the time.
Yeah. I still look up to him. He has a lot of good things to offer for sure.
Yeah, and friend Dave just said, yeah, why don't we just make a video showing the type of stuff we do? So yeah, that's what we did.
Gotcha. So would you consider yourself more of a breakdancer or more of a calisthenics bodyweight athlete, or something else?
It's kind of hard to define exactly one discipline, because I do a little bit of a few things from a few disciplines. So there's a bit of breaking, a bit of tricking, a bit of calisthenics. I would say 10 years or so ago, I would consider myself mostly a breaker. And as I've gotten older, I've kind of moved more into calisthenics rather than just breaking. So now I'd probably say the majority of what I do is calisthenics, but I always like to throw in a little bit of breaking, a little bit of tricking, just to keep things interesting.
Okay. Is there a specific reason why you've been leaning more towards the calisthenics?
Yeah, just as I age, so just as joints hurt, I think breaking's definitely a young man's sport. The older I get, the harder it is to do things like hop as high as I can on one hand, or do things like hollow backs where you're putting a lot of stress through your shoulders. Calisthenics is just a much safer, more controlled, slower art form. So yeah, I much prefer that in my training these days.
Gotcha. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like, there's also like less injuries as well.
Yeah, exactly.
So you started with breakdance, is that correct?
Yeah, so I started when I was about 10 or 11. My parents got me into gymnastics. I did that for about a year. Never really excelled with it. And then a friend from my elementary school was taking breakdancing classes, and he said, "You should come check this out. If you like gymnastics, you should try breakdancing." I was like, "What's that?" It's like, people spinning on their heads and all that sort of stuff. So I went along with him to a breakdancing class, and then I switched over and just continue with breaking from there. But from gymnastics, there was always a bodyweight strength component. So if you've ever done a gymnastics class, often they do some technique, and each class has a strength and conditioning component where they'll do things like hollow body holds, rope climbs, chin-ups, all the sort of calisthenics exercises. And I saw the value of that when I was trying to learn power moves in breaking. And I thought, damn, if I was just a little bit stronger, I could do this move. Or if I could just planche a little bit better, I could get from flare to a handstand. So that's why I continued with this sort of bodyweight gymnastics, calisthenics strength training.
Gotcha. Did you ever compete in breakdancing?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I did quite a bit when I was younger, just local competitions around Australia.
Okay. Yeah, I actually used to do dance as well. I mean, I still do it
Oh,
sometimes.
cool.
Not break dance, but I did popping and locking.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah,
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 cool.
but they're actually considered kind of in the same street dance. So if
Yeah, yeah.
I'm not sure if you ever watched like the UK B-boy championships or just Taboo in
Yeah.
Paris, but
Yeah,
yeah.
we train with quite a lot of guys. There's a guy named Leonard Trey from Australia who I'm quite good friends with, who's very into popping and locking. So yeah, quite familiar with that scene.
Okay.
Yeah, I
Uh,
suck at it though.
breakdance is breakdance big in Australia?
Not really. I think yeah, you'll find a few places it's quite big. I think it's a lot bigger in places like Korea. New York's got a pretty good community there, but Australia's pretty small. It's still a pretty rare art form.
I see. Um, so maybe let's talk about your training style. Like, what kind of training do you incorporate? Like your training split, and yeah, what kind of training protocol do you usually abide by?
Yeah, so I usually train about 4 days a week with upper body strength training, and then I'll throw in some leg sessions once or twice a week. When it comes to upper body training, it's usually predominantly calisthenics. So I'm not exclusively calisthenics. I'm not like I never do weights, but probably 90% of my training is body weight training. I'll throw in some things like weighted dips, weighted chin ups. I find those really useful. It's just a really good way to track numbers and progressively overload objectively. Um, and then within each session, I usually do a push pull split. So I'll do 1 day pushing, 1 day pulling, legs, 1 day pushing, 1 day pulling, legs. Each session, I'll probably choose 4 to 5 exercises and do each of those for about 3 to 4 sets. So a typical training session might look like for the planche or for a pushing session, I might start with planche negatives, maybe do 5 to 10 singles, then some isometric planche holds, 4 to 5 sets of 15 to 20 seconds, some pseudo planche push-ups, 4 sets of 10, and then finish with some supplementary exercises like weighted dips, or overhead press with a barbell, bench press with a barbell, that sort of thing.
So do you primarily train at gyms, or do you also kind of train at parks or outdoors? Because I know in Australia the weather's a lot better than North America or in Europe. So I think you can
Yeah,
almost get away
y-
with training outdoors all the time, right?
yeah, you can depending on where you live. I usually just train at home, so usually just in my living room or yeah.
Okay, so you have like a power rack or some weights with you, so you can be doing the non body weight exercises.
Yeah, so I've got a rack at home, but even if I don't, before that I'd go to the gym once or twice a week and get those weight sessions done. If not, you can get a really solid workout at home. So you might just replace my overhead press with some handstand push-ups or some weighted handstand push-ups. You can replace incline press with some decline push-ups, especially if you've got a weight vest handy.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so I've had to improvise a little bit with the lockdowns, but
Yeah, I think we all
you
did.
can still you can still get a really solid workout in. Having the luxury of weights is really nice. It can add a little bit of variety, keep your training a little bit more fun, but it's definitely not something that's essential.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I would totally agree with that as well. I guess it is nice for some of the isolation exercises. So I personally really don't like training biceps, like isolation, just with calisthenics. Like even the
Yeah,
curls,
yeah,
I find kind of uncomfortable.
yeah. A lot
Yeah,
a lot of people compare weights and calisthenics, like calisthenics is better or weights is better, but really it comes down to your goals. If I was a bodybuilder and I was just focused on, you know, developing certain proportions and targeting specific muscles, I would definitely do weights. It's a much easier form of training. Um, but I just prefer calisthenics. You can still get a really good workout with calisthenics. You still can build a lot of muscle with calisthenics, but it's definitely harder to do certain things like target specific muscles. It also involves a little bit more thought, um, because you're limited to your body weight. It's not like you can increase your body weight to progressively overload. In overloading with weights is really simply just throwing more weights on a bar. With things like calisthenics, it can be a little bit more, a little bit harder to know how to to overload. So things like adjusting your leverage in a planche, using more open positions to increase the challenge.
Yeah, I mean, weighted calisthenics is kind of like the in between, I would say. So
Yeah, weighted calisthenics is great. Yeah, yeah, it's a pretty high floor to get to though. Before you're doing weighted calisthenics, you need to be good with dips and pretty good with chin ups already, which a lot of people can't do. So for a beginner, it might be a little bit more discouraging.
Yeah, and that makes sense. I mean, yeah, to be able to do working sets of 12, you probably should already be able to do close to 20 pull-ups, for example.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, because I find pull-ups one of those things that's very fatiguing. Like if you really get to like close to your maximum, your next set is just completely done.
Yeah, it's like it's a lot like squats.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But whereas like
it's
bench
just
press, for example, you can get close to your max, and then next set you can you're not that affected.
yeah. I definitely agree with that.
But I think it's just in general, like all the like bench press, I find way easier than doing dips or even weighted.
Yeah,
There's a lot more like I
yeah,
don't know, nervous system involved where you have to really uh, yeah, I think it's more of a full body exercise, right? Whereas like a bench press, it's a lot easier. That's
yeah.
what
I find dips and bench press pretty comparable
okay.
with regards to fatigue. But yeah, pull ups and weighted pull ups, and they destroy me.
Yeah. Uh, so I'm just curious, like what kind of numbers do you hit when you do like weighted dips? Because I mean, your pushing strength is pretty, especially like overhead pressing is crazy. So I really wonder how it translates to just the dips.
Yeah, so I never really test a 1RM with things like weighted dips. It would be really cool to know. I just find the risk of injury outweighs the benefit. There's no reason for me to do a 1RM. I don't compete in any weighted calisthenics comps. I use dips as a supplementary exercise to help things like planche, overhead pressing strength for handstand push-ups, 90-degree push-ups, that sort of thing. But yeah, when it comes to a set and rep range, I don't really stick to a set and rep range. I'll sort of change them depending on what my goal is at the time, by using a periodized approach. Or what I much prefer doing, because it gives you a nice year-round strength program, is just doing a combination of high rep and low rep stuff. So doing some low rep stuff to target high intensity, strength specific outcomes. So I might do triples or sets of 5, and then I'll do some lower rep stuff just to get some more volume in, stimulate a little bit more of a hypertrophic response. So a session, a typical dip session, there's many ways to do this, and I sort of change between them. But right now, what I might do is I might have a strength day on, say, a Monday, where I'll do 5 sets of triples or 5 sets of 5. And then on a Friday, I might do 4 sets of 12 to 15, just to stimulate a little bit more hypertrophy, train in a higher rep range, make it a little bit easier on the joints.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think high reps are super underrated. Even more than 20 could be beneficial a lot of times.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of people fall into this this traditional hypertrophy range where they say, if you want to build muscle, you've got to be doing between 8 and 12. But more research has emerged in the last decade that shows if you're doing between about 5 and 30 reps and you're equating sets to failure, you'll get similar muscle gains with any of those rep ranges. So if you're doing 5 sets of 5 to failure, or you're doing 5 sets of 25 to failure, you'll get a very similar hypertrophic response. So I think that that you can use that lower rep stuff really intelligently to help your strength. Because the more muscle mass you have, the more strength potential you have. So you can do your high rep stuff. So you've got that specific, the low rep stuff, high intensity stuff. So you've got that specific strength training. You keep the motor patterns crisp. You're used to doing a really high intensity, and then you can do that lower rep stuff to help build muscle.
Yeah, because I think one of the traps that I fell into is when I first got into weighted calisthenics, I started seeing really good results, even just doing the very low rep stuff, and I thought that was the secret. But eventually, I think that was just my nervous system that was really adapting really quickly. And I just stopped doing bodyweight pull-ups for like a very long time, and I think that was a really big mistake because eventually I plateaued because I was doing stuff like below 10 reps.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now I try to have even a day where I'll just do like just body weight only day, you know, like 10 sets of 15 or like 10 sets of 10, some of that like high volume.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, so I think a lot of people experience that, especially more intermediate and advanced lifters. You know, if you've ever done a highly specific low rep or really high intensity training block and you've never done that before, you'll make really significant gains. So, you know, if you start doing triples on your pull up, you'll make really significant gains over a course of, you know, 4 to 8 weeks. You'd be like, wow, I've never done this type of training before. I should just do this all the time. And the problem is you'll always reach a plateau because there's two things you can influence with your training when it comes to strength. There's a lot of things which determine how strong you are, such as where a tendon will insert in a bone will influence how much torque muscle contraction will produce. You can't change any of those things through training, but through training you can change how much muscle mass you have and your neuromuscular efficiency, or how well you are at recruiting those muscle fibers. So if you just train really low rep, high intensity stuff, you get really good neural adaptations, but you'll probably hit a plateau when you reach a ceiling there and you don't have any more muscle mass. You know, your muscle mass isn't increasing. So I think with advanced athletes, or if you've ever done a really high intensity block, doing a hypertrophy block after that can be really useful just to put on a bit more muscle mass, improve your strength potential. If you have more muscle mass there and the same neuromuscular efficiency, you'll produce more force.
Gotcha. Yeah, and I think also another mistake, I mean, like that I've had was, you know, you follow a lot of influencers and they'll do very advanced moves, and you think, oh, that's how you get better.
So you train.
You know what I mean? Like they probably don't usually do those moves to get better. Like it's
definitely. You always see these clips on Instagram of people doing like triple clap push up, then a backflip, then a spin, then a one hand push up, and people think, wow, that's a hardcore way to train. And I just think, no, that's a really cool way to show off, but what works isn't, you know, there's much more optimal ways to build strength.
Yeah, it's usually the boring stuff that gets you strong until you can do the cool stuff.
Yeah, that's it. The problem is that isn't sexy when it comes to posting your
post engagement,
your 5x5s. 5x5s on dips. No one cares.
And for your rest days, so you said you train around 4 times a week. Do you do anything at all on your rest days?
Yeah, so I don't really have I'm not too strict with my training. You know, I allow quite a bit of flexibility in there. I'll do, you know, some incidental exercise on my rest days. I might, you know, go for a walk, go hike, something like that. I might do a few handstands. But I don't really have a set thing that I will or won't do on my rest days. I just try to avoid high intensity exercises of the muscle groups that I'm trying to rest.
Gotcha. And I think you're like a, you know, overhead press specialist. I don't know if you would say that, but that's one of your things you really excel at. And I think one of the cool things about like shoulders is like they recover quite fast, in my opinion. So you can almost train it like every day, you know? Whereas like it's like the opposite of like squats, for example. Like I would hate doing squats the day after I just had a day of squats.
I feel exactly the same. But I think that's just something that something you can become accustomed to. Because you have some powerlifters who'll do a daily 1RM block or train squats daily with a 1RM, and I can't think of anything more more intimidating than that.
I think so it's just used to it as well. If you do train it often, then it stops getting sore as often.
Exactly. That would be something that, you know, if a beginner who hadn't done this style of training ran into before, tried doing overhead pressing every day, they'd probably run into an injury, or trying to do squats every day. But if you just gradually build to that kind of frequency, you can definitely sustain that for a while.
Gotcha. Do you have any sort of like warm-up routines?
My warm-up's usually pretty quick. I don't often do much stretching. I've got a YouTube video about how I tend to warm up and break down the science of that a little bit. But I usually just do some active range of warm-up. So I'll just take the joints that I'm using through their full range of motion. Then I'll do some neuromuscular kind of warm-up. So before handstands, I might do some wrist push-ups. Before planche, I might just do some standard push-ups just to get a little bit of blood flowing to the area. And then do some easy sets building up to the intensity. So, before bench press, I might do some light sets, or before planche, I might do some planche leans.
Do you still get any wrist injuries or like wrist pain from doing a lot of handstands, or does your body just get super used to it after years and years of doing them?
Yeah, my wrists are pretty good. They're fairly resilient. But every now and then I do get some wrist pain. I think having a background in breakdancing really helps that, because you really condition your wrists quite well to hopping on your hands all the time.
Gotcha. Because I just recently like learned how to do the handstand and like handstand push-ups. I'm still not a pro at any means, but like it definitely hurt a lot on my wrists. For the first few months.
Yeah.
But it could also just be because I was putting up more force because I wasn't good at the balancing. So I figured maybe once you're really good at balancing, there's also like less, you get less wrist issues.
Yeah, you don't have to generate as much force with subtle, more refined corrections. Another thing that can really help is if you if you find you have poor wrist mobility, or your wrists don't bend back that far and you feel they're jamming, you can use a decline block or decline a board, so that your wrist angle is less. So as opposed to being at 90 degrees like that, you'll be doing your hand balancing here.
Yeah.
So yeah, quite a few high level hand balancers that spend a lot of time on their hands use that just to take the stress off the wrists.
Yeah, I've seen like the yoga wedges as well. Have you ever used the blocks, handstand blocks?
Yeah, I've used handstand blocks. I definitely prefer the floor, just because that's what I'm used to, and that's generally where I do most of my training and performing. Another thing that's useful is parallettes.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, just keep your wrists in a nice neutral position.
And you also get a bigger range of motion. I guess for handstand push-ups, that'd be very useful.
Yeah, definitely.
What about cardio? Do you do any cardio?
Zero. Just incidental cardio. So, things like hiking, walking. But
Yeah.
I never do planned cardio.
And in terms of walking, do you make sure to get a certain amount of steps per day, or?
Not at all.
Okay.
Yeah.
But how is so you left Australia and you moved to Nevada, right? Is that correct?
Yeah, so I'm just here visiting. So I used to work in Las Vegas. Now I'm just here for a few months visiting my girlfriend, and then I'll head back to Australia. But yeah, I'm based out of Melbourne.
What's going on in Australia? I heard it's like closed.
Yeah, so Melbourne had a really strict lockdown for a little over 3 months. So things like curfews, like an 8 p.m. curfew, 5-kilometer restriction from your home, only a few reasons you could leave your home. They had about 700 new cases a day in Melbourne, and that's down to 0 now since that lockdown. So now they've opened back up. They've had, I think, 9 or 10 days of 0 new cases. So yeah, they're gradually easing restrictions, and things are heading back to normal.
Gotcha. So you are allowed to go back and just quarantine for 2 weeks.
I have to quarantine. I have to go to hotel quarantine, and yeah.
But I mean, that's the case anywhere. Did you have to quarantine when you arrived to the US?
Nothing. They're just like, welcome.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if you come from Australia, where it's super safe, to the US, where there's like 100,000 cases, like it'd be stupid for them to make you quarantine.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but I'm gonna have to quarantine on the way back, and I think at the moment you have to self-fund that, so that's not going to be too fun. Stuck in a room, they make you pay for it.
Yeah, well,
when you could be doing that at home.
Oh, so they don't even let you go home. Why is that?
No, I think they take you from the plane straight to this to a hotel with security, just to make sure everyone's abiding by the rules and no one's sneaking out and transmitting a virus.
Like a proper prison.
Yeah, it's like a hotel prison.
Jeez.
Yeah.
All right, so let's. I want to just make sure I go through all the questions. I asked you about your wrist, just I was curious, but now let's maybe talk about this. You've been training since 10, so it's like almost 20 years. Have you had any serious injuries, or just any injuries in general that you want to mention? And
plenty. You name it, I've probably had it. So I think the most significant injuries I've had have come from, I did a few years of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and got quite injured with that. So I had a posterior shoulder dislocation and then a subsequent reconstruction or a labral repair on my left shoulder. Um, I've had meniscal tears in both knees that I've had debrided. Um, those are had a dislocated thumb. Those have all been jujitsu injuries. Um, one thing, one significant injury I had, not even brain. I was trying to jump one day and I slipped and I ruptured my adductor longus on my groin, tore it off the bone.
Just
Yeah,
from,
and then
not even a backflip.
yeah, so no, so what? So I've I was performing in a different state, and I'd had a little bit of a sore groin from head spins. I think I had a bit of a tendinopathy there. So just this kind of little annoying injury, just very mild pain with head spins. And then I was trying to jump over a drain, and it was slightly wet, and my foot slipped, and I ruptured my groin. Yeah, ruptured that tendon.
It wasn't a competition or anything. This is just
No, this was going to the airport, trying to get over this drain,
okay.
and yeah, jumped and ruptured that. But yeah, you can name it. I've had ganglions in my wrists, all sorts of tendinopathies or tendonitis.
So BJJ is something you don't do anymore.
No, I love it. It's just too risky when most of what I do depends on my body.
Yeah, I mean that's totally understandable. Let's see. Yeah, so you said you do leg training. It seems like you train around once or twice a week.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So that's ideal. Yeah, I had quite a while with no access to a gym because they closed gyms in Melbourne. I didn't have a rack at home during that time. Um, that's why I got one. So yeah, I had a long time without doing any form of weighted leg training. But my preference is definitely to go to the gym and just do weighted leg workouts. I think it's really easy to get if you know what you're doing, it's really easy to get a solid upper body workout with just your body weight. There's
Yeah.
plenty of ways to manipulate your body weight to make it challenging. I find with legs it's much harder to do because you've grown up doing leg body weight workouts your whole life. So you walk upstairs, you stand up from a chair, you're doing a body weight exercise while you do that. So I find there's a few challenging things like Nordic curls, but quite strong people can do 20, 30 pistol squats, and that can be a pretty miserable way to train doing sets of 30 pistol squats. So I'd much prefer to get under a bar and do sets of 10, 12, 8.
Gotcha. I mean, I'm the total in agreement with you. I just don't like doing pistol squats in general. I find them really uncomfortable.
Yeah,
I get like cramps on my quads to keep your leg like up,
yeah,
and you got to
yeah,
worry about the balance, and then you got to do
yeah, and
all the steps for each leg.
exactly. And if your goal is something like jumping really high, and you're trying to maximize your max strength and your explosivity, it's really hard to train max strength with pistol squats. You need to have quite a lot of weight on you. The balance component's quite challenging. I think a much better approach would be to get under a squat bar, get under a barbell with some chains or with some bands and do some really high intensity work there.
Yeah, definitely for the main parts. I think there's definitely some benefit to doing a little bit of unilateral exercises, like even if you don't like them, just to keep the balance.
Oh,
Like
yeah,
yeah,
100%. But even in that case, I'd much prefer to do lunges under a bar than do body weight pistol squats to failure.
yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Let's see. What about your diet? Do you have any sort of eating schedule or just eating practices?
Yeah, so I don't have a strict diet at all. I don't follow a diet. But just some general principles I tend to stick by is just try to eat a lot of fruits and vegetables, try to consume adequate protein. So I'm quite active. I usually try to go for about a gram a pound of body weight or 2 grams per kilo of body weight. And just limit things like alcohol, refined sugars, saturated fats. But yeah, other than that, there's no real strict diet that I follow or any religious practices I have when it comes to eating.
Do you take like protein powder on the like just to make sure that you hit those protein requirements?
I'll very occasionally go and get a protein shake from a service station or something, but I don't regularly take take a
Gotcha.
protein supplement. Yeah. I think I consume quite a lot of protein in my normal diet. I eat quite a lot of lean meat, things like milk, yogurt, nuts. So I'm usually okay with getting adequate protein intake.
Gotcha. Let's see. Uh, Do you take any supplements? Uh,
Yeah, I take creatine. That's the only one that I take vitamin D. Um, yeah, especially in Melbourne during the winter. But that's it.
okay, very simple. So you find a big difference when you take creatine?
I definitely don't find a big difference. There's a lot of evidence that creatine is kind of the gold standard supplement. So when it comes to um, evidence in the sports science community, that's the supplement that has a lot of a lot of studies showing its benefit with things like um, strength endurance and power output. That effect is quite mild though.
Yeah,
Yeah, I find
definitely.
when I ta- I find when I take it, I can probably get a couple more reps in or lift a little bit more weight. But I find when it comes to body weight training, um, you sort of end up being the same because you might be storing a little bit more water, you weigh a little bit more, things get a bit harder. So I find your strength and your weight kind of scale at a similar level.
I see. So you do notice your weight goes up when you are on creatine.
Yeah, not a great deal. So it might go up 1 or 2 kilos, but when it comes to things like planche, handstand push-ups, front levers, you feel that.
Yeah, that's definitely true. For me, for one arm chin ups, for example, I definitely like when I'm almost 80 versus when I'm 72 kilos. It's like night and day.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Yep.
What
Do you
about
take creatine?
me? No, so I actually didn't really notice. Like I have friends that take it and they gain like 10 pounds like within a month. Like I didn't get any sort of weight change, and also there's like studies that show that it increases your DHT levels, which leads to hair loss. And I'm already like uh, prone to hair loss, so I'm like, okay, maybe I'll
Okay.
back off on it. So
Yeah. Yeah,
yeah, but
cool.
I did try it for a little bit. I didn't really feel that much of a difference. So
Yeah. I think people often talk about it like this is gonna make this is gonna change your life. But it's the effect is extremely mild. Um, it's a significant effect, or at least that's what the literature shows. But it's a mild effect. It's not like it's going to double your strength or it's going to make a night and day difference.
yeah,
It's just something that might
it is.
improve your
Sorry, go
yeah,
ahead.
it might improve your performance. Oh, I was just going to say, it might improve your performance over a um, long term.
Yeah, I mean, it does seem to be quite proven to be effective. Out of like, there's a lot of obviously like all the illegal stuff is definitely going to work, but like out of all the legal ones, like this is the only one that's like really seems to be proven to be effective.
E- exactly. Yeah.
And it's already existent in meat, and it seems like it's also good for your brain. I heard it's a nootropic, so
Yeah.
seems
Yeah.
to be benefits of taking creatine, but I just don't take it at the moment.
Yeah. That's totally fair.
Let's see. What about pre-workouts, or maybe just coffee or something? Is there anything?
Coffee. Yeah. Yeah. Coffee all the time.
Okay, so
Yeah.
you're a bit of an addict. It seems.
Yeah, I'm from Melbourne. We love our coffee.
Okay, well, I'm
Um,
the same. I drink a lot of coffee.
yeah, but that's my pre-workout. I don't take any other pre-workout. I'll just have if I need a little bit of an extra kick to get a training session done, I'll just have another coffee.
Yeah, same with me. Let's see. Um, do you think there's something that's underrated? So whether it be like a fitness product, a training like a training protocol, accessory exercise that has greatly helped you in getting stronger.
Um, I think one thing that isn't practiced a lot is especially with calisthenics is just attempts of the skill that you're going for. So if you're trying to unlock the planche or you're trying to unlock the one arm chin up or you're trying to unlock the front lever, um, just doing attempts of that skill can go a really long way. So this would kind of be the equivalent of if you're training with weights, doing an occasional 1RM, like a weekly 1RM, or twice a week you might try your 1RM for a particular movement. I find that really goes a long way with calisthenics.
Okay, so you're saying like if you're trying to get the straddle planche, instead of just doing tuck planches, you should just go for the straddle planche like once a week.
Yeah. So yeah. So so just to go back to the topic of talking about like periodization, I find if you're competing, if you've got a certain, you're a powerlifter, you've got a meet coming up, I find, your traditional periodization can be really effective. So that what that is, people listening, if they're wondering what we're talking about with periodization, it's manipulating variables for a particular outcome at a particular time. So for example, you might do a hypertrophy block, where you're doing sort of higher volume, lower intensity training. You might be doing sets of 8 to 12 for a block of 6 to 8 weeks to build as much muscle mass as you can. And then you might do a strength block, where you're just doing triples and you're doing the occasional 1RMs, and you're training at a really high intensity that's specific for the outcome of this powerlifting meet. So that's a really good way to peak at a particular time point. I find with calisthenics, especially if you're not competing, you're just doing this because you enjoy calisthenics, it's the style of training you like, but you still want to be as strong as you can, that you don't have to do a periodized approach. So I don't do block periodization, where I'll do hypertrophy blocks and strength blocks usually. I find a really good year-round training program that you can do is doing hypertrophy focused training. So you might be doing sets of lever raises in the 5 to 10 kind of range, but then once or twice a week so that's really good to build muscle, but that doesn't optimize your neural adaptations for the outcome you want of a really high intensity planche, lever, or one arm chin up. So I find if you do a year-round hypertrophy block and then once or twice a week you throw in a few attempts or a few 1RMs, that goes a really long way that's a really good way to stay really strong year-round, as opposed to peaking and troughing with regards to your strength performance.
Yeah, I mean, that makes a lot of sense to me. Yeah, so just doing a lot of the stuff that actually will increase your muscle, but once in a while doing even a heavy negative.
Exactly. Yeah. So once or twice a week. Let's say you want the one arm chin up. You might do most of your training. You might do 2 to 3 chin up sessions a week. Most of your training's focused around, you're doing archer pull-ups, you're doing assisted one arm chin ups with a band or a pulley. You're doing weighted chin ups. You might be doing all of that in the 5 repetition, sets of 5s to 10. Then if, once or twice a week, you just throw in some one arm negatives, or you throw in just some one arm attempts, that's a really good way to speed progress towards that goal, especially if you're close to it.
Yeah. Yeah. I was fortunate enough to get it took me 5 years to get the handstand because I was never consistent with it. But for the one arm chin up, it only took me 2 to 3 months, but it's because I had a good base with pull-ups already. But I just try to do negatives once or twice a week, and that's pretty much all it took. So
that's awesome.
Yeah. So make sure you do the you're saying just do the heavy attempts, and then that's
in addition to the negatives, were you training your traditional sets of standard pull-ups and things like that, or you were just doing negatives once or twice a week?
No, I was definitely still doing weighted pull-ups.
Yeah, cool. Yeah.
Well, I mean, if you just didn't, because you can only do so many attempts before you basically you're going to fall. So
exactly, yeah, and I think that really goes to show if you've got a really strong foundation, you have enough muscle mass, and a good foundation on which to build towards that one arm chin up. It might just take some attempts. So you probably had the strength, or very close to the strength there, to do a one arm pull up. It's just that motor pattern that's a little bit foreign. You just need to refine that, improve that neuromuscular efficiency, and you can get it.
Yeah, that makes sense. Especially for the bar, I find the one arm pull up a little bit kind of awkward because you really have to turn your body in a certain way. Whereas on the rings, it's a lot more fluid. So
yeah, that's a really good tip for people who get elbow pain. So I don't know if you encountered golfer's elbow or some elbow pain on the inside of your elbow training one arm chin ups.
I don't think so. I think I was lucky I didn't have that issue.
Lucky, yeah. I find a lot of people when they're training for the one arm chin up get a lot of pain in their medial elbow, so they get kind of what's called golfer's elbow. And I think rings are a really good way to help target that. Rings are great if you have any sort of elbow pain with pulling, because rather than being locked into a certain position at the top or bottom of a chin up, the rings can swivel to where you're strongest and where you're most comfortable. Because if you find when you break down chin ups are quite a nice position for your wrist at the top of the movement, but at the bottom of the movement, it's kind of awkward hanging with a reverse grip or a supinated grip. And
Yeah.
pull ups are the opposite.
So,
Yeah. And pull ups are the opposite. Pull ups are pretty comfortable at the bottom of the movement, but when you get to the top, it can put the wrists in an awkward position, especially with closer grips. So rings are just a great option because they'll just swivel to where your wrist is comfortable the whole time.
yeah, because I also just, when I was learning the one arm chin up, I only focused on the rings first, and the reason for me was because your joints are already in so much stress because it's more weight than you've ever carried, right? Like your whole body weight on one arm, so you're already having so much stress. So at least remove the rotational stress by using the. Yeah. All right. So yeah, this one's interesting. So it seems like as someone who's already at the top of their game, is there anyone that you look up to? Whether it be a fitness person or someone who's not in the fitness industry. Who's your motivation?
Yeah, so there's a lot of guys in the fitness industry making really good content and teaching really well. So guys like Daniel Vadnor, Fitness FAQs, I really look up to him. He's great. I love his style of teaching. The guys at Cali Move are great. There's a bunch of people who make good content online. Now, mostly what I'm doing is teaching and making more tutorials. So those are the guys I look up to. When it comes to performance, I get a little bit of motivation from all sorts of different disciplines. So I really like watching MMA. So you might get some, there's just a Khabib fight going on. Watching that stuff's a pretty good pre-workout. Just guys who excel in their field, people who excel in their field.
Gotcha. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I saw the fight. It was intense. I mean, 29-0. It's like,
yeah, it's crazy.
It's unbelievable. And he seems very humble. Like, unlike the fighters that are.
I like that. I like that too.
So in terms of, do you have any current like strength goals? Is there a certain move that you're trying to get?
Yeah, I'm trying to improve my my front lever. So I really want to just improve my front lever holds and front lever pull-ups, work towards full front lever pull-ups. But like I said, there's not really a performance goal that I'm not focused. There are performance goals that I want, but I'm not focused on performing so much these days. It's more teaching.
Gotcha. Yeah, it seems like everyone that you were looking up to, you're talking more about their ability to teach rather than their strength.
Yeah.
Although they're all really strong as well. I mean, I know Daniel can do some really incredible stuff, and he's 6 feet tall. So.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and you're 175, right? Is that correct?
No, I'm 179, so I'm about 5'10", 5'11".
Oh, okay, yeah, I was actually talking to Yad, and we were trying to guess what your weight was.
Yeah, I think I'm about like just under 80 kilos.
Okay, so you're like 79 kilos.
Yeah, probably roughly. I don't weigh myself very often. But yeah, I'm usually around like 77, 79.
Okay, so I forgot what the numbers were. We were trying to make a bet on like what your weight was, and if it was like over 78, like he was gonna buy me dinner, and if it was under 78, like I was gonna buy him dinner or something.
Oh, sweet. Yeah, I think
an answer. But
I think yeah. Well, I said 79, so you can
okay, we're gonna go with 79. I'm gonna have to look at the video and see who was right. But all right, I'm glad we got that answer.
Yeah, I'll have to next time I find a scale, I'll let you know.
Okay.
You can settle the bet.
But it seems like it was 79. Let's see. Do you have a like one of your best moments or memories from your training career?
I think the most memorable moments are just training with friends. So from like my days, used to train at this place called Nika in Melbourne. I really enjoyed that. Training outside with some calisthenics guys in Vegas was really fun. You train, have a barbecue. Those are my best moments. There aren't really any like outstanding moments where something crazy has happened. It's just been, good times with friends.
Okay, I think like for me, example, like one of the memorable moments was my first one arm chin up.
Yeah.
Like your first move. So none of those are like that big for you. It's more just like the training with your friends.
Yeah, I can't really remember like a first, the first time I got a particular move. I remember my first one arm chin up. That was fun. But yeah, those aren't really the things that stand out to me. I have no idea when I did. Maybe it's just because it was so long ago. I've been training a long time. Or maybe that just means I haven't progressed enough recently. Forgotten it all.
It's also normal that the longer you train, the slower your progress is going to be, right? So
yeah.
Because I learned the one arm chin up basically within the first year of training, but sometimes I still can't do it if I don't do it for a while. Like if I'm not specializing in one arm chin up, sometimes I can't do it anymore.
Yeah, that's totally normal.
Yeah. And then I have to do some negatives again, and then within a week or within a week or two, like I'll get it back. But like
just refreshing that motor pattern.
Yeah. Let's see if I have any more questions. So the last question I have is there something that you know now that you wish you could tell your younger self that just started training?
Yeah, I think just focusing on a few skills at a time. I think that's the most common mistake from beginners. That's definitely something I fell into, was trying to focus on so many skills at once. Especially when I was training across a few disciplines. So, I was training flips and power moves and calisthenics, and I'm like, oh damn, I'd really like a one arm chin up, really good head spins, air flares both ways, flips, a planche, a lever, and a human flag. And if you're trying to pursue all of those skills at once, the progress is just so slow in each of those individual skills. I think a much smarter way to train is just to pick a couple of things to address at a time, focus on those for a block. Once you've made some improvement, or you plateau, or your goals change, you just want a new goal to keep you motivated. That's when you switch it up. So I think that's definitely something I would have changed.
Perfect. So right now, so taking the own advice that you just said now, like your main focus is the front lever pull-ups. Is that correct?
Yeah. That would be the main thing I'm training with regards to pull sessions.
Gotcha. Yeah, I hope you get it soon. That's a really hard move. I see some people that do it super easy, like, but I don't know, like I don't know how to do it. It's like it's my
I'm the same. I find it really hard. I generally find pulling strength much harder. My background has been breaking. It's always been pushing, so I feel a lot more comfortable with that sort of movement. But yeah, the front lever pull up is something that's crazy, because you're trying to contract in such a short position. Yeah, so I find front lever pull ups really impressive. But what's even more impressive is the guys who hold a touch front lever, or hold a front lever at the top. That's crazy. Because that shows not only do you have the strength to pull there, but you've got the strength to hold that position in such a short muscle length. It's just such a flex.
Yeah, I think there's one correlation that I've seemed to notice is that everyone that seems to have mastered the front lever pull-ups seems to have like those dip bars, the portable, you know what I'm talking about, like that's kind of, they just have them at their house. So I think they're just getting a lot of like high frequency, because it's
just training it. Yeah.
So maybe if you buy yourself those dip bars, you would progress, and just by
the really low dip bars, right? They're like hip height. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. For some, just having the door pull-up bar is not enough to get it appear.
Yeah, that's a good point. I don't think ever, or I've seen a bunch of people do touch front levers or front lever pull-ups. I don't think I've ever seen anybody do them on a pull-up bar, like a wall-mounted pull-up bar. I always see it on the low parallettes, or like a standard, really stable pull-up bar.
Yeah, or maybe another thing is they usually do it with a false grip.
False grip. Yeah.
Bars are thicker.
Yeah. False grip will just reduce the range of motion that you have to pull.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you ever see anyone do front lever pull up with a standard grip, that's especially crazy.
Yeah, but I think the first step is definitely to get it with the false grip, because I think there are people who
Definitely.
can definitely do it with regular grip, but I'm sure they first got it with a false grip, got
For
more volume
sure.
in
Yeah,
it, and went for the regular grip. Yeah,
definitely.
yeah. 'Cause
How
like
about you?
Yad can do like 8. Like I saw him in real life, he was just like floating and doing pull-ups, front lever pull-ups.
Yeah, it's insane. Have you got any goals at the moment you're working on?
Uh, yes, I really wanted to get the 90-degree push-up, but I hurt my shoulder. Got this thing called shoulder bursitis.
Yeah,
I'm not sure if you've had it before, but I think it's just from doing too much overhead, like handstand push-up practice, and I
yeah,
had to take like 2 months off, which sucks. But
that sucks. You'll get it back.
yeah, so yeah, hopefully I can get the 90-degree push-up. Do you have any recommendations to get it?
Yeah,
'Cause right now I'm doing the bent arm planche. I just want to make sure I can hold that for like 5 seconds at least, and then I thought you just kind of try to combine the two. And
yeah.
then
Bent arm planche is really, so 90-degree push up is kind of a hybrid between a handstand push up and a planche push up. So you're lowering from a handstand to a bent arm planche back up to a handstand. And you can just think of it as a much more efficient way of doing a full planche raise, because you're bending your arms. So it's just an easier version of or it gives you more freedom than a full planche press. Um, so things that I find really useful: improving your planche strength, improving your handstand push-up strength will go a really long way. And then to specifically target the 90-degree push-up, exercises like negatives are really useful, um, and band-assisted 90-degree push-ups, if you've ever done that. So you know how you train a planche with a band? So have you
yeah,
seen people do band-assisted planche hold? So you put a band under your hip bones and you can do a straddle planche. With that, you can also do a straddle 90-degree push-up. So the straddle will keep the band in place. It'll stop it from moving around. And then you can just do handstand with the band straddled, lower down, back up. And you can train essentially assisted 90-degree push-ups.
okay, it'd be assisted straddle 90-degree push-ups.
Correct, yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah, so because I mean, it looks super cool. I mean, you post it all the time on your Instagram. And I mean, yours is extra cool because it's like so clean.
Thanks.
Yeah. Hopefully, I can at
Yes.
least get a sloppy one first, and then eventually try to clean it up to get it to.
Yeah, that's it. That's generally the approach I take. Like, don't worry about your form. Just unlock the skill and then refine it. As long as you're not doing anything that's dangerous, a bit of suboptimal technique is fine.
Yeah, one thing
Yeah,
I've noticed with your handstand push-ups is like obviously there's a triangle between your head and your hands, and your
yeah,
head goes quite far even when you're just doing regular handstand push-ups.
yeah.
Yeah, and I think I'm assuming that's harder than the version where you don't go as far, right?
Yeah, it it's just different. So you can do I would say it is slightly harder. So you can do handstand push-ups with an elbows in technique, where you're moving on the plane of pure flexion extension, and that will lead to your head translating pretty far in front of your hands. Alternatively, you can do handstand push-ups directly out to the side, where you'll just stay completely vertical the whole time, like an overhead press with the elbows flared out. Or you can do anything in between. I find training with the elbows in is really useful for calisthenics because it's transferable to other skills like the 90-degree push up, the planche push up. So if the goal is just to do as many handstand push ups as you can, I'd probably flare my elbows out a little bit. But when it comes to training with other skills in mind, elbows in is the way to go. So that's why I translate my head pretty far forward.
Gotcha. So you recommend people to always aim for the one that you do, or do you recommend
Yeah,
start with the
it
easier variation? Because I'm pretty confident that
I,
the wider version is easier than the one
yeah,
that.
I think most people will have more strength with the wider version. If you said do as many handstand push-ups as you can, I'd probably do something in between the two. It's not that black and white, like you have to have your elbows all the way in or you have to have them all the way out. There's a continuum that you can use there. My recommendation is if you've got the goals in mind of planche push-ups, 90-degree push-ups, in addition to your handstand push-up, use an elbows in technique or as close to that as you can. So some people just find this really uncomfortable with their shoulders. If you just use a 45-degree angle, it will benefit your planche push-up and your 90-degree push-up a lot more than just doing a strictly elbows out handstand push-up.
Okay, perfect. And maybe we can do one more question to help the
Yeah, of
listeners.
course.
'Cause we're talking pretty advanced stuff right now. We're talking about 90-degree push-up, handstand push-ups. But let's like for people that haven't gotten the handstand yet, do you have any recommendations for helping them get the handstands, or even just helping them being able to hold it longer? Because even my handstands, to be honest, I can't hold it super consistently or super long.
Yeah, so I find unlocking the handstand, using a wall is super beneficial. So using a wall is great to help build confidence because you're not gonna fall over. You can do back to wall handstand and refine your kick up. You can do a chest to wall handstand and refine your alignment. Or you can even do an angled handstand into the wall just to get comfortable on your hands, build a bit of strength, build a bit of confidence. So wall handstands would probably be the best thing I can recommend for beginners. Um, that you can use exercises there to help your alignment or to help your balance. I find if you're consistently falling a particular way, so let's say you're consistently falling over to your back, using a wall is really useful. So you can do a back to wall handstand against the wall and just use your fingertips to push off the wall. So lift off the wall and fall back into it, lift off the wall and fall back into it. That way you can really refine your balance mechanisms from falling over towards your back. In addition to that, once you're comfortable with balancing a handstand for a few seconds, using the wall is beneficial to help refine it. Having a partner spot you is useful to make your handstand training a little bit more efficient, spending more time on your hands each set as opposed to falling down and having to kick back up. But I think the most important thing is just time on your hands and consistency. The more time you spend upside down, the more you're practicing that skill, the better you'll get at it.
And do you find the handstand to be kind of like riding a bicycle? Like once you master it, you kind of never forget it, or do you also find it more like a strength skill where you kind of have to maintain it once in a while to make sure you don't lose it?
I think the two-hand handstand is probably like riding a bicycle. Like it's you know I'm not ever worried about losing that skill. Um, when it comes to things a little bit more advanced, like one-arm handstands, I think you probably need to be a little bit more consistent to maintain that level. But then again, if I got on a bike right now, I'd probably be pretty sloppy to start with, and then I'd have to refine my technique a little bit. So I would say it is pretty similar.
That'd be funny that if you were just like a master at handstands, but you couldn't ride a bicycle.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
pretty sure
But if you,
it's
I
way
think,
harder than a bicycle.
yeah, I think learning a two-hand handstand is um, is not such a commitment. I think most people can achieve a two-hand, or like a solid straight handstand, um, and then you can use that for other skills like handstand push-ups. I tend to use my handstand as a foundation to build a foundation for calisthenics. So 90-degree push-ups, handstand push-ups, planche to handstand, that sort of thing. Um, but when you start moving into like single hand handstands, that commitment is it's such a big commitment to unlock that. If you look at hand balancers, they train 3 hours a day of handstands, 6 to 7 days a week. It's crazy. So it's a really frustrating move if you want to go far with it.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think Yad was saying the same thing. He said, or maybe it was Mike Smart.
Yeah,
Yeah, they're saying the same thing. One-handed handstand is just like a completely different level of two-handed. But yeah,
yeah,
for most of us normies, like even the two-hand handstand is actually quite a commitment. Like for me, I found it way harder than like a one-arm chin-up or something. I really had to. Like I was lucky enough that I had a lot of time with the lockdown to really just attempt it like 30 times a day or something.
yeah,
But it took me like, I still haven't mastered it. Like, or I'm still not consistent at all. Basically,
yeah,
the stuff that I post, like I think you found my best through through the video I made of the handstand push-up. I
yeah,
think,
yeah,
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 like that wasn't like it's not like 100% of my attempts are like that. Like I fall like a bunch of times, and that was the one that I didn't fall.
yeah. Yeah, that's pretty normal learning the handstand. It's quite unique because all these other skills in calisthenics are strength dominant. Um, so one arm pull up is largely about how strong you are. Handstand is just really little motor movements. It's more of a skill than a strength movement. It's just about refining your balance and making subtle early corrections to maintain your weight over your hands. So yeah, it's a little bit a little bit unique.
And yeah, I'm actually quite good at riding a bicycle. Like, I can ride it with no hands, and I can even turn without touching the handles. But yeah, I just found the handstand to be really hard, and I maybe just
Yeah,
depends on people. Like, Zeph, the founder of Barbarians. Like, he also, like, said he hopes to learn the handstand one day. So I think that it's just one of those things. Like, some people find it somewhat easy, and I think some
yeah,
people find it really hard.
yeah, yeah, definitely. But I think with consistent practice, you can make a lot of improvement, especially towards the two-hand handstand.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I think the consistency is like super important, because that's the benefit of the handstand. You can train it, uh, so
Every
many
day. Yeah.
arm chin up. Like, you can only train it once or twice a week before you get injured, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, yeah. It's a much less strength dominant move, the handstand. So there's a lot less fatigue. There's a lot less of a recovery demand. So you can do it literally every day. But when it comes to things like one arm chin ups, planche, that's you'll be too sore to have a hard training session every day.
Yeah, it's great for rest days, because I don't know, I'm someone who's doesn't like rest days. I always want to train, and now that I can kind of do handstands, like, it's given me something to do on the rest days.
Yeah, yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for coming on, and I think the listeners and me included, we definitely learned a lot. And yeah, where can people reach you if they want to learn more from you?
Yep. So my website is simonsterstrength.com. My YouTube channel is the same, and Instagram handle is the same. So I've got some free tutorials on YouTube. I've got some training programs on my website, and I post stuff on Instagram all the time.
Perfect. All
Cool.
right. Well, thanks for coming on, and yeah, we'll stay in touch, and maybe we'll do another one in the future.
Yeah, sounds good.